Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is Societal Narcissism. This video is sponsored by contribution from Blue Columbine, and she sent in a couple videos of, I guess this is a lab that's out in her area in California that was discovered. I haven't heard about this, so let's just get right into the videos. It's got about, I think, 6 or 7 short videos and then a longer one at the end. So let's get into it.
First, here at 6, cleanup is underway at an illegal medical lab in Reedley. The medical lab was operating out of a warehouse in the middle of town. It had bioengineered mice, infectious agents from COVID-19 to malaria, and hazardous chemicals and waste. All the biological waste was removed in the beginning of this month. Code enforcement telling us...
She's telling me this is in the middle of a town. There's like a gas station, convenience stores, markets, all in the area. So I don't know if this is like one of those gain of function where they're doing chemical testing or manipulation to make these dangerous. But this should not be anywhere. A lab like this shouldn't exist in the first place. And if it does, it shouldn't be anywhere near people.
Today, in the coming weeks, heavy machinery will be brought into the site to speed up the process. We don't know if the building has electricity, but court documents show that the water was off and illegal electrical work was done inside.
I went in, they allowed me entry into the building, and I observed other building violations such as electrical and some structural compromisation, which allowed us to post the building unsafe to occupy. So that's really what gave us the step up on this case and being able to stop them from moving on to another location.
Court documents show
who's running the lab, though? I mean, who's in charge of this lab?
email exchanges between city and county officials and the owners of Prestige Biotech and Universal Meditech, and someone by the name of David He. City officials explained in their emails that David He was vague about his plans for the work inside that.
Sounds... David He? Sounds Asian.
Warehouse, and that David He also disputed the claims that any infectious agents were kept on site. We've been all over this story since Wednesday when we first heard about this medical lab, and new here tonight, our Ben Morris joins us now live with a timeline behind the lab and the clash between Fresno City Council member Gary Bredefeld and county officials.
Councilmember Gary Bredefeld says that who's running for a Board of Supervisors seat himself says the Board of Soups and County Health failed the people of Reedley and the county by not letting them know about this lab sooner. County Supervisor Nathan...
So then the county knew about it? They knew about it and they let these guys operate in this kind of condition, and it's just now code enforcement? Like, code enforcement is the best government agency to go in there and figure out what's going on? Not the Department of Health?
Nathan Magsick countered, saying these public closure documents say that the county closed this facility back in April.
This is similar to the crisis when foster children were found to be sleeping on floors in offices. They only addressed it when they were forced to because it became public through the media. This is disgraceful.
City Council member Gary Bredefeld taking aim at the county at a press conference Monday. County Supervisor Nathan Magsick called Bredefeld out, saying key information has been public for months.
I'm hard pressed to really, today, to ring a bell, to put fear in people's minds. In regards to this particular laboratory, I am very confident is done.
Today, he handed me these ordered closure documents, the first dated April 21st.
If you go to the Fresno County page, you can find it right there.
He says the city of Reedley asked for their help after discovering the illegal operation in December of last year. I asked him why they didn't alert the public then.
We needed to engage with the CDC, the FDA, state, federal agencies, brought them in, and so they had their own investigations that they needed to do. They didn't have made...
What does that have to do with alerting the public if you knew it was illegal and they had dangerous things going on in there?
Your concerns per se about this site, and they turned it back over to the county. That's when the county began to issue its notices so we could get the site cleaned up.
Magsick says tests determined the area around the lab was safe. Now they're working with Reedley to clear the space.
We identified that everything was...
I wouldn't trust a goddamn thing they told me. I wouldn't trust a goddamn thing.
contained right there on site, and so there was no need to evacuate anyone that might live nearby.
But there's more to the timeline than this. In 2019, Mag6 says the lab, then called Universal Meditech, opened in the city of Fresno before this fire in August of 2020 at their facility here near North and Orange Avenues forced them to close. The city of Fresno asked the county to check out the safety of the operation last year. It's not clear why the request was made.
They moved that operation out to Reedley. That was all done improperly. But in October of 2022, code enforcement for the city of Fresno asked the County Department of Public Health to come out and assist them at that particular lab site in Fresno, which we did.
Now, if you want to read these closure documents for yourself, you can find a link to those on our website, yourcentralvalley.com. Reporting live in Fresno, Ben Morris, CBS 47 Eyewitness News.
This is crazy.
Well, tonight, new stunning developments into the illegal medical lab in the heart of the city of Reedley, a terrifying situation straight out of a horror movie.
The situation involving nearly 1,000 lab mice and thousands of gallons of hazardous waste are
because mice can't get out, right? That can't cause a problem. Mice and rodents have never caused public health emergencies in the past. Holy shit.
Morris joins us with more on why the city and the county are on high alert.
The known history of this company, originally Universal Meditech, spans nearly a decade. According to a court filing, it all began with the company's founding back in 2015 at an address in Tulare. Fast forward to February of 2019, an article from the Business Journal detailed the company's move to a location on East Fortune Avenue in Fresno. In August of 2020, a fire then broke out at the location. Our cameras were there to capture Fresno Fire's response, but fire officials tell us the cause of the fire has still not been determined. Fast forward to October of 2022.
Probably arson.
Meditech, still at the Fresno location, fell on hard times over mounting legal troubles. They transferred their assets to Prestige Biotech, a Nevada company founded in 2019, who was listed as a creditor on court docs. Universal Meditech started the bankruptcy process, but it has not been filed. That same month, Prestige, now at the Fresno lab, signed a temporary lease with Alliance, a company specializing in cabinetry, for the warehouse in Reedley, where the lab illegally relocated to. On Halloween.
So they basically moved a medical testing lab where they're doing dangerous things to animals, mice, to a cabinet making lab. Whew. This is in the same state, mind you, that won't let you cut back the forest, cut back the brush, and burns every summer.
Of 2022, City of Fresno code enforcement contacted the Fresno County Department of Public Health to check out the East Fortune location in Fresno, as the city was concerned about chemicals at that site. Assistant Director for County Health Joe Prado says they tried reaching out to find out more about the chemicals and overall operations.
As we reached out to them, they didn't provide that information to us, and as we were trying to communicate with them.
Where's OSHA? Why is OSHA not in here? They're dealing with chemicals. They're dealing my God.
And then we lost contact with them. They moved out of that particular site. We confirmed that with the property owner that they had moved out. So we lost track of them there.
And why did the property owner rent to somebody like this? Why aren't they being held accountable?
In late December of 2022, the discovery of the lab in Reedley is made as Reedley Code Enforcement Officer Jesselyn Harper notices a hose coming out of the back of what's supposed to be a vacant warehouse on 850 I Street and finds no active business permit. And in January, Prestige began the process of moving back to Fresno, here to this location on North Platella Lane, one that would be ready for them by June. On March 10th, the warehouse in Reedley was marked as unsafe to occupy, as code enforcement noted nearly 1,000 mice, nearly 200 of which were dead, kept in horrific conditions, electrical violations, and improperly stored biohazard waste. After multiple inspection warrants, an abatement warrant was ordered and served on April 12th, and the mice were euthanized. On April 25th, Reedley's fire chief wrote a letter to the city manager detailing a potential disaster for the city and an evacuation plan if needed. From July 5th to the 7th, after an abatement warrant was served, thousands of gallons of medical, biological, and pathogenic waste and material.
So they just left everything? Like they just left everything, including the animals? Why are they allowed to move anywhere in the same state?
Were removed from the lab by county contractors. Now, crews from the city of Reedley.
This is another example. You get what you vote for, man. You get what you vote for out there.
They are removing equipment from the lab, with the plan being for the CDC to come in after that. And while there is a lot to this timeline,
why wouldn't the CDC get there when the animals that were infected there, so they know this is a cover-up? Like, why would the CDC, not that I trust the CDC as far as you can throw them, but again, this is another cover your ass type of investigation. Get rid of the evidence before the real authorities come in and then whitewash the whole thing.
there's still more. The former lawyer for Universal Meditech is now suing the company for fraud and bad business practices. There's still plenty to uncover on this lab, and we'll continue to share more as we continue to learn more. Reporting in studio, Ben Morris, KC24, local news.
This has got to be bad if the local California news is reporting on this. This has got to be real bad.
Matters.
I've been in government for 25 years. I have never seen anything like this.
First at 11, this one is...
That's a bullshit. That's bullshit. I mean, whenever you tell when these politicians, when something like this happens and these politicians act like they're shocked, especially in a place like California, bullshit. Bullshit.
Tough to believe. An investigation tonight into a possible illegal medical lab. It was operating out of an abandoned warehouse in Reedley. Inside, mice bioengineered to incubate the COVID-19 virus.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's awesome. But it's not a bioweapon. It was never a bioweapon. God damn it.
Near I and 9th Streets.
So basically they're doing gain of function. They're doing gain of function in California. When they're telling me, oh, that's why we're doing it in Ukraine, in California, and in China, in Wuhan, and we're doing it here too. And if you think this is the only lab like this in the country, I got a bridge to sell you.
30 refrigerators and freezers, some broken, were found filled with bodily fluids. Health officials tell us they are shocked at the biological house of horror. CBS 47's Juanita Adame live in studio with the shocking details tonight.
Well, Brian, this story is so complicated. There are local, state, and federal agencies all involved. Now, what prompted this investigation was a simple garden hose that was illegally attached and coming out of the back of a building.
Attached to what?
It was back in April inside this abandoned warehouse in Reedley that a discovery so shocking was made that it left local health officials stunned.
This is a truly unusual situation. I've been in government for 25 years. I have never seen anything like this.
I never have seen this in my 26-year career with the county of Fresno.
What was supposed to be an empty building used only for storage was home to an unauthorized lab testing facility, something no one had even conceived of.
Again, how many of these are around the country? I'm sure there's many.
We reach out to our local public health directors throughout the state, California, and there's really nobody has really expressed this type of interaction with a unlicensed lab. So it is something new.
The discovery was made after a local code enforcement officer
They drilled a hole in the wall for a hose? Are you serious?
noticed this garden hose poking out a back wall of the building.
Frankly, we knew that shouldn't be there, and when she went to go investigate, she found that there was activity or operation or something happening within that building.
The city then obtained several search warrants to enter the building. Once inside, no staff was located, but
there was a special room that was built housing about 1,000 mice, 1,000 white lab mice.
And the reason the mice were in the lab was jaw-dropping.
Through their statements,
they're just using regular kitchen refrigerators? And then they left all their equipment? Like it's almost like this is there to try to kill people. That's what it seems like.
That they were doing some testing on laboratory mice there that would help them support developing the COVID test kits that they had on site.
Documents show the lab was
for COVID test kits, huh?
Also being used to produce pregnancy tests. 200 of the nearly 1,000 mice were already dead. According to court documents, all the rodents were being caged in, quote, inhumane conditions. also found thousands of vials, many of which contain biohazards, materials including human blood, unidentified tissue, and other unknown substances.
A lot of these are being classified under unknown chemicals. Labels had been removed from bottles, so there was only certain testing we could do to those chemicals.
According to court documents, experts determined that at least 20 potentially infectious, viral, bacterial, and parasitic agents were being stored inadequately, including E. coli, malaria, and even COVID. The city of Reedley
I think the other ones are a little more serious than COVID.
immediately called in the CDC, the FBI, the California Department of Public Health, and the Fresno County Department of Public Health.
I think because
I promise you, the reason the CDC hasn't come in yet is because the CDC knew about the lab. I promise you this. I promise you they knew all about this.
Because of that swift action that was taken, we really have been able to maintain public safety this entire time.
Over the course of several weeks, investigators figured out just what they were up against. And as of now,
there are no more biologicals, there are no more mice, but they still will see us abating. There's 30 freezers and fridges, there's medical equipment, there's all sorts of furniture in there. And so they'll still see some activity, nothing hazardous at this point.
Prado said the owners operated under the name Prestige Biotech, and so far they aren't saying much.
Some of our other federal and state partners still have active investigations going, so I really can speak more to the building side of it.
Which will go nowhere. Why isn't the CDC in there? Why isn't WHO in there? Why isn't there federal agencies in there? Where is OSHA? They don't want to know. They'll let the locals go in there, clean out the evidence, and then they'll go in there like, oh, well, nothing here. Sorry. I promise you they knew about this. I promise you the feds knew about this lab.
Now again, Reedley city officials emphasized that the lab had no city approval to operate and was supposed to be vacant. Investigators are working to figure out what to do next.
So why isn't it on the landlord who let them go in there in the first place? So don't they bear any responsibility for this?
Live here in the studio, Juanita Adames, CBS 47 Eyewitness News.
Nita, what a wild story. And for continuing coverage, of course, stay with Eyewitness News right here on TV and online at yourcentralvalley.com. Our investigation into the illegal medical lab operating in Reedley uncovers new details.
Fresno County Assistant Director of Public Health, Joe Prado, says, and court documents show, people associated with the lab told Reedley City and Fresno County officials they were located in China. We asked Prado whether or not the people involved were...
I promise you the federal government is involved in this without question.
With the Chinese government, and here's what he said.
I can't confirm the connections to Chinese government. These are individuals, business owners that they've represented themselves to us that they live in China. That's to the extent that we are aware of. But confirmation to the government, I do not have any information in regards to that.
And that is not the only important information that we are learning here at 5. CBS 47's Medeiros Babb with what she has uncovered.
In my hands are the hundreds of documents about the horrors and dangerous nature of the illegal...
And this is what's they're gonna just bury everything in paperwork, make it as complicated as possible, and hope the story goes away.
Reedley lab that was exposed several months ago by a city code enforcement officer. What was found inside would prompt the fire chief to send a letter calling it a potential disaster for the city. Nearly 1,000 overcrowded bioengineered mice, files of...
How did they get all this equipment in there without anybody knowing about it? This is bullshit that even the city didn't know about it. How did they get all this stuff in there with no one knowing about it?
Blood and this list of infectious diseases, including malaria,
chlamydia, E. coli, Helicobacter pylori, microbacteria, tuberculosis, these are all more serious than COVID. I'm sorry. Mycoplasma pneumoniae, a general mycoplasma species, Neisseria meningitis, Nosto species, like Jesus Christ. But viral Hep B, Hep C, Danu virus, Jesus Christ. HIV 1 and 2, herpes 1, herpes 5, respiratory, severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus, malaria. You think they're not trying to kill somebody? You think they're not trying to kill us?
E. coli, chlamydia, COVID, and many others. That was what was found in this warehouse in Reedley. A city code enforcement officer first noted the illegal lab in December. She says a signed lease for the property shows the company moved in from its Fresno location to Reedley in October of 2022.
They're just what did they go to fucking Home Depot and buy a bunch of refrigerators and freezers?
Just a little over a month before the lab was discovered. For the first half,
how do they get all this shit in there and nobody notices?
Of 2023, the process of cleaning the Reedley location was stuck in court. The hazardous electricity wires without permits, including added outlets for running refrigerators and freezers, unmarked stored highly flammable chemicals, and medical devices in cardboard boxes, made fire probability high and the risk of a...
I mean, there's meth labs better run than this. Jesus.
Possible explosion. That's what prompted Reedley Fire Chief Jerry Isaac to send this letter to the Reedley City Manager. In it, the chief outlined a planned evacuation zone in case of an emergency, which included the City of Reedley Police Department, Reedley City Hall, Kings Canyon Unified School District main office, and 12 homes. Due to a gas station right next door, the chief wrote in the letter that, quote, the concern increased of a potential disaster for our city, end quote. The letter was instrumental in the city getting warrants to go inside of the property, and since then, the city, county, FBI, CDC, and other state and local health agencies have been approved to start cleaning it up. In April, they euthanized over 700 of the mice. The beginning of July, chemicals were removed, and right now, the cleanup continues. The removal of chemicals and other products will continue in the coming days and months, and city and county officials want to make it clear to the public that the public is not in as nearly as much danger as it was back in April when the letter from the chief was written, especially because...
So you're still in danger. You're just not in as much danger. And so how much danger is not as much danger as last time? Because this is all subjective. You're talking about malaria. You're talking about HIV. You're talking about diseases besides COVID that kill.
Since then,
and infected rodents.
The electricity has been turned off and several hazards have been removed. Reporting in the studio, Meteors BAP CBS 47 Eyewitness News.
New at 11, more information coming out about an illegal medical lab discovered in Reedley.
That includes more than $100,000 of federal funding they received during the pandemic.
Told you the feds had to be involved. I told you the feds knew about this. I told you. I knew it. There's just no fucking way that the feds weren't involved in this.
CBS 47's Juanita Adame uncovered this story a week ago today and has the latest developments for us tonight.
As more is uncovered about this lab, officials tell us they are deeply concerned about how all of this was able to fall through the cracks with no one taking notice any sooner.
Because the federal government was paying for it. That's how. What do you mean? They knew about it. They absolutely knew about it.
Universal Meditech was approved for and received 2 federally funded loans, each one with the value of nearly $75,000.
They applied and received $150,000 in PPP loans, which were forgiven as well, which is very troubling because this, of course, is taxpayer dollars.
The first loan was approved back in April of 2020 and forgiven in July of 2021.
Now that we're finding that government dollars, they had applied for PPP loans, had received PPP loans, again, it's very troubling just seeing now today how they were operating.
The second loan, approved in February of 2021, was forgiven just 1 year later in February of 2022.
Prior to
get the loan forgiven, you have to explain what you're doing. I told you, the feds knew about this. The feds paid for it. So what they're doing now, okay, is they're whitewashing this for the federal government. That's exactly what's going on.
All of this, the facility located in the city of Fresno in 2019 was welcomed by the city of Fresno and operated there until the end of 2022.
Nathan Magsig, who represents District 5 for the Fresno County Board of Supervisors, said as they dig deeper into the unauthorized lab, it was apparent they were operating without any kind of oversight.
A lot of the test kits and materials.
It's going to be hard to say that it's unauthorized when the federal government is giving them loans and then forgiving the loans. Because in order to get those PPP loans forgiven, you have to be able to verify what you're doing.
Materials that they have produced. There's information on websites that some of those test kits had to be recalled because proper protocols weren't being followed.
And it was back in October of 2022 that a City of Fresno code enforcement officer also raised concerns about the building on Fortune Avenue and the chemicals located there.
And so as we worked together, our number one goal was to protect the public, contain the site, and then bring in state and federal agencies to assist with the cleanup and remediation of this particular site.
Now, Magsig said it's about looking ahead for some changes.
I'm very hopeful that at the state level and
looking ahead, you haven't held anybody accountable. See, this is no, we got to move forward. Bullshit. You haven't held anybody accountable yourselves, the federal government. Like those loans are.
Federal level, there will be legislation that comes out to prevent something like this happening into the future.
We also learned that Universal Meditech is trying to get clearance from the City of Fresno to reopen one of their labs here in Fresno near the Fresno Yosemite International Airport.
So they're still trying to operate. They haven't done anything, and it's been over a year.
No word yet on how the Fresno City Council will
and nor are they responsible for cleaning up the mess the mess they made. How do they leave all this equipment behind and just want to open up another lab? What is that?
On to that. Reporting in Fresno, Juanita Adame, CBS 47 Eyewitness News.
Something like this could be in every city in the nation, and we wouldn't be able to regulate it the way we should be able to regulate it.
I'm sure there are. I'm sure these labs are everywhere. I'm sure if we looked at the PPP loans and did some kind of query search on lab funding, we would find these things everywhere.
New details tonight regarding the illegal lab in Reedley. Emails reveal the California Department of Public Health told Fresno County officials not to make information public once it found out about that lab.
Told you.
Good evening, I'm Liz Gonzalez.
Told you it's all a whitewash.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Well, the Fresno County Department of Public Health shared a detailed timeline of the investigation before the information came to light to the public.
Fox 26 News reporter Myra Franco shows and explains.
Sounds like the Department of Health had no clue of this. Other government officials, local, state, federal, all knew about it. It's the Department of Health that didn't know about this, and they blew the whistle. And then they were like, don't make this public. Well, why? Why wouldn't you want to make it public? Oh, because you're all complicit.
Is why local officials say their hands were tied. Myra?
Liz Monty, many people have been asking why local officials did not release information sooner about the illegal lab in Reedley. Fox 26 News learned today in these emails between the state and the county, Fresno officials wanted to let the public know, but they say they were told to be quiet due to the nature of the investigation. Emails exchanged by the Fresno County Department of Public Health and the California Department of Public Health clear up a lot of questions that local, state, and local representatives have been asking. Why wait to share information about an illegal lab that potentially posed a threat to the public when it...
Because they're complicit and they want to get rid of the evidence and they want to cover their asses.
Found out something was going on months ago. The county says it hoped to release some information in late March. Instead, CDPH put out this holding statement for the county to use, saying it was assessing the situation and the investigation was ongoing. The county responded, saying several agencies would be at the lab and would be wearing personal protective equipment, and whether it should still run with that statement since members of the public might notice them. The state said yes. When asked if there was any other information they wanted to share for the evolving issue, CDPH stated no. It did not want to say anything more publicly due to the active investigation. 2 days later, Fresno County...
And that's what they do. They always say, oh, we can't tell you there's an active investigation. bullshit.
Officials revised the statement with input from the city of Reedley and sent it to CDPH for approval. CDPH responded, crossing out some words with a recommendation saying, quote, "We suggest you not point to specific address and not mention PPE or law enforcement at this time, as we believe it could unnecessarily cause concern and questions."
It ain't it's the questions they don't want. Not the they could give a fuck if you're concerned. They don't want the questions because they knew about this. Which is why they're cleaning it up and they're not holding the company accountable. They knew about it. The company, and I promise you that company will be able to reopen in the new location because that company probably told them, no, you're going to clean it up and you're going to do nothing about it. Otherwise, we're going to expose your complicity.
With the Fresno County Department of Public Health told Fresno County supervisors Tuesday the county and the city of Reedley wanted to be transparent, but their hands were tied.
As we're communicating with our federal and state agencies, they're making it very clear to us we cannot speak on this. This is our protocol.
Of course the feds are telling you that because the feds were paying for the goddamn lab.
This is what they adhere to, in that they're not able to speak on an ongoing investigation. They've made that clear pretty much from day one.
The county says the FBI even requested it not release a lot of details.
Oh, the FBI, they're a big shock, because they're what an upstanding and honorable organization they've turned out to be.
Prado says that's when the city and county of Fresno started to focus on what they could do. This includes requesting the company running the lab, Prestige Biotech, to provide a complete inventory of all materials on site that pose a public safety risk. But
they really had nothing for us. It was a lot of hemming and hawing, but no real information.
During this entire
Sound like just like everything the feds get caught on. Just like anything you catch the feds doing wrong, this is what you get.
Discovery dating back to October of 2020, Reedley City Manager Nicole Ziba says they did everything in their power to keep the public safe.
This was a bad player company, a bad actor company that was kicked out of Canada. They went to Texas. They got kicked out of Texas. They came to California. Kicked out of Fresno, went to Tulare. Kicked out of Tulare, went back to Fresno. Kicked out of Fresno, came to Reedley. This little David city took down Goliath with a green garden hose.
A spokesperson for Fresno County tells me they raised concerns of needing to say more, but it becomes a challenge when working with multiple agencies, as many as 20 at the same time, and each agency follows its own protocol. Monty, Liz.
All right, thanks so much, Myra. And tonight's Reedley City Council meeting also focused on that illegal lab. A crowded house had plenty to say over how the situation was handled.
That's right. Some praised the work of city and county leaders, while others even called on the city manager to step down.
What you did was wrong and dishonest, and I feel like we can't trust you.
There is no doubt that they could have done it differently slightly, but I think they covered the bases as well as it was humanly possible to do it at that point.
The fact that you guys decided to handle this meeting in a venue this small is actually preposterous.
We need to
Right, because it's all things a whitewash. They knew about it.
know what kind of accountability there is to the entity who owned that lab.
Reedley's city manager and code enforcement officer told the council the abatement process wrapped up today, and she added to the debate over going public sooner, saying Prestige Biotech had been providing information for months into the investigation, but once it went public, there has been nothing.
Of the illegal biological COVID lab discovered in Reedley in March of this year. It's first important to remember what this community, our nation, the world went through for the last 2.5, 3 years. The COVID pandemic went on for nearly 3 years. It's commonly believed that COVID resulted from a lab leak out of the Wuhan lab in China.
Of course it did.
Worldwide, there are 769 million cases of COVID that resulted in nearly 7 million deaths. In the United States, there have been 107 million cases and nearly 1.2 million deaths. In California, there have been 103,000 deaths. China's COVID-19 virus resulted in the destruction of lives, livelihoods, the economy, and business. Children were stupidly locked out of school for 2 years and were destroyed academically, socially, and emotionally. people lost their freedoms, were forced to get experimental vaccines, to wear ineffective masks, and were lied to over and over by the CDC and government officials. Any information that challenged the lies and the tyrannical mandates that were suppressed by social media. And we had officials locally that were silent and complicit with all the unconstitutional and destructive government orders. And now they're silent again. So what do we know about this lab in Reedley? Well, on March 3rd, the Reedley code enforcement officers investigated the site after seeing an illegally attached garden hose. On March 16th, the warehouse was inspected, and it was discovered that the lab was producing COVID-19. There is blood, tissue, bodily fluid samples, and thousands of vials with fluids that are not labeled. They also found 900 mice, 200 mice that were dead. On March 16th, the representative from the company, Prestige Biotech, potentially a China national, informed investigators, quote, "These mice were genetically engineered to catch and carry the COVID-19 virus," end quote. Prestige Biotech, that company, is licensed in Nevada, not California. One address listed for this company is a vacant building in Las Vegas. Substack reports that other addresses related to this company appear to be in China, though this can't be verified at this time.
There is no way. And we already know it. The federal government knew all about this. That's why they haven't gone after the company itself, because the company itself will expose the entire thing. Probably name names. Right up to Fauci.
And they also report that, quote, "Thousands of packages were found as well, many with shipping labels from China," end quote. On May 4th, the CDC inspected the lab and found infectious agents that were both bacterial and viral in nature. Some of these include hepatitis B and C, rubella, malaria, E. coli, and pneumonia. Fresno Superior Court documents indicate that mice were involved in these experiments with COVID-19. The lab apparently illegally disposed of medical waste, and it's believed it went to the landfill. This can't be confirmed because the operators of the lab have not been forthcoming.
They're trying to kill everybody. They're trying to kill people.
Now, questions that must be answered and the public has a right to know. One, is this company from China? Or is it sponsored by the Chinese government?
How do you not know
What was
that?
the purpose and goals of their experimenting with COVID-19 and having mice catch and carry the disease? What were they doing with all the bacterial and viral infectious agents found at the illegal lab? Two, are the people that were running and operating this lab Chinese nationals or American citizens? If they're not American citizens, are they here illegally? Three, and most importantly, why wasn't the public informed of this illegal lab and what was found? The Fresno County Department of Public Health has an obligation to notify the public of potential dangers, both past and present. During the COVID pandemic, their medical officer held weekly press conferences justifying ineffective, destructive lockdowns and mandates, and yet not even an acknowledgement to the public of the illegal and potentially dangerous activities at the lab.
And here they are trying to lock us down again. New strain. Wonder where these strains could be coming from, these new strains.
So he spent a week having the media come, telling the public things that were not true, supporting all of the tyrannical, destructive things that were taking place in our city, our county, our state, our nation. And then when a lab related to COVID-19 is found 5 months ago, no word. No word from him, no word from the Public Health Department, no word from the Board of Supervisors. Number four.
What about the
The Board
PPE
of
loans?
Supervisors are also silent. This is similar to the crisis when foster children were found to be sleeping on floors in offices. They only addressed it when they were forced to because it became public through the media. This is disgraceful and represents a willful decision to hide from and shirk their duties as elected representatives of, guess what? The public. They're responsible to the public.
Right, but they despise the public. That's the problem. They think they're above the public.
These same Board of Supervisors were derelict in their responsibilities to the public during the pandemic. They were silent and complicit with all of Governor Newsom's destructive, unscientific lockdowns, mandates, and forcing kids out of school for 2 years.
Also, the other reason they don't want this around, Newsom's going to be who replaces Sleepy Joe on the ballot, okay? You think he wants this hanging over his head? Oh boy, no.
Now we have the same cowardice from the Board of Supervisors, and they're silent again when facing another crisis in the county, again related to COVID. The public has a right to know, what did the Board of Supervisors know about the lab? When did they know it? And why didn't they inform the public? 5, are there any current potential dangers to the public as a result of these experiments and illegal dumping of medical waste that involve COVID-19 and potential infectious agents that are both bacterial and viral in nature? Are there any potential adverse impacts to the farms in the area? How about the people in Fresno County or even beyond the local area? We know COVID spread around the world. How can the public be assured no medical waste was disposed of in our water systems?
They can.
Number 6, were any safety measures in place at this illegal lab to protect the public from spread of COVID or the infectious agents they were experimenting with?
Clearly not.
We believe COVID spread from the Wuhan lab, and it could have come from this lab as well. Number 7.
Or how many other labs like it? Or how many other labs like it?
Lemoore Naval Air Station is only 45 miles from this illegal lab. As was reported in Substack, quote, all of the F-18s for all the Navy's West Coast-based carriers are located at Lemoore. The F-18s are primary strike fighters for the United States Navy. In a war with China, these are the aircraft that we would rely upon to sink Chinese naval vessels and give us victory, end quote. The implications from the spread of a debilitating virus.
This is what I'm trying to tell you. Russia, China, they're not invading us militarily. This is how they attack us.
Could be devastating to our nation's military readiness. Is the location of this illegal lab coincidence or purposeful? Now, what do we do with what we've got right now?
This is nothing more than New Age warfare. They're not going to attack us militarily. They can't. This is what they're doing.
Thank to Joe Prado of the Fresno County Department of Health, there's currently no requirements for any lab, licensed or not, to report to the local public health department the biologicals or the testing that is being conducted. I call on the Board of Supervisors to immediately create a new law mandating this requirement in Fresno County, with the penalty of immediate shutdown if the lab is non-compliant. Additionally, there should be financial and criminal penalties for non-compliance. Secondly, Mr. Prado also stated, quote, if you don't receive public funding of any sort, you can, with private dollars, set up a laboratory in California and the United States, end quote, just like was done here. This must change on the state and the national level. There must be enough oversight to protect the public. This clearly isn't the case now, and it must change immediately.
The last thing government agencies accept is oversight. They want no part of it.
And lastly, I don't know when elected officials will learn who they work for. It's for the public. The public has a right to know that after March 3rd, 5 months ago, in a legal lab experimenting with mice with COVID-19 infectious agents, similarly as was done at the Wuhan lab 3 years ago, is going on in our backyard. The public had a right to know. The public has a right to know exactly what they know and when they knew it and what they intend to do about what's going on. Secondly, are there any other labs like this floating around?
I'm sure they'll give a straight answer. I'm sure they're going to be honest and give a straight answer.
And what is happening with the people who were involved in this lab? These are the questions that I've been asked by the public. These are the questions that should be answered by the public. And the Fresno Board of Supervisors and the County Public Department of Health, Public Health, has an obligation to let people know what's going on. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Well, there's no connection other than I represent the public, and the public is asking me, Gary, can you get involved and find out what's going on? And so we've done that. And that's what...
If Congress can't get straight answers from the FBI, from the attorney generals, to whoever, to judge, to judicial candidates, to cabinet candidates, you can never get a straight answer. What makes you think these guys are going to be able to? They're not. Until you start, local governments start, local authorities start arresting these people, nothing is going to come about. Nothing. All this was a whitewash because this lab was funded by the federal government. They knew about it.
What we've done. They know darn well that I'm their voice, that I always have been a voice for the people. And just like during COVID-19, with all of the tyrannical, authoritarian, unscientific, destructive lockdowns that I opposed, they know where I stand on things. You have to have transparency in government. And it just is lacking. And it's lacking here. And it's unbelievable that we've just gone through COVID for 3 years, where millions of people lost their lives under similar circumstances with people who were experimenting in China, and a virus was unleashed upon the world. Whether it was intentional or not, we don't know. But the fact is, a virus was unleashed on the world.
Yeah, but we got so many TikTok videos of nurses dancing around empty hospitals. I mean, come on. Can you really put a value on that?
Similar ways. Experimenting with COVID-19, and then it left that lab and people died. That is something we'd have to look at. I'm not aware. I mean, this is the first since I heard about this on July 25th when it was reported.
You found one. Do you think they're just going to like, oh yeah, there's this many in every state, and like fooling yourself?
In the local media paper there in Reedley. It's the first I've heard of any kind of lab like this anywhere. So that's something I'm sure the city of Fresno is going to look at and determine, are any labs like this operating anywhere? And if so, what's going on? Hopefully this was the only one. I'm sorry? Act on what? Well, when you have a business...
Pull the business permits? Pull the business permits? I mean, a lab like that would have to be in a certain size facility, okay? You're not going to rent a storage unit and open up. So, I mean, there's very limited type, I've imagined, properties that could even house something like this. It isn't that hard.
Business, you're supposed to have a business permit.
Thank you.
People are supposed to provide that business permit and pay for that permit, and that's how the city knows businesses that are operating in the city. Now, if there are labs, as Mr. Prado says, that if they're private, they don't have to register with anybody, that's a problem. And that's a...
Also, a facility, they thought this facility was empty. Well, it wasn't. It's got all this equipment, refrigerators, freezers, lab equipment. It's drawing power. All you have to do is get a list of your vacant buildings and see what kind of power these facilities are drawing. Kind of like how cops used to find out if you were operating an illegal grow operation because the lights would drive up your utility bills, and then they get a warrant based on that. It isn't hard. These buildings have to use up a certain amount of kilowatts of electricity. Just by going through to the power companies and find out who's drawing enough power and drawing enough kilowatts to operate would narrows this scenario down by 95%.
The problem on a national and a state level, as well as a local level. Did you have a clue? Go ahead, whoever. We, the city of Fresno, will certainly be doing our due diligence with this situation, looking at any relationship that occurred in the city with this lab or what they may be trying to do in the future. And the city's going to do that work, I can assure you. Yeah, that's what I read as well, and we're looking into that. And I've spoken to the city manager. I know they're all looking into that on all levels. Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know, but you figure if the county public health department is involved, they're responsible for the oversight there. That's why they're elected to be there. So they had to know at some point, clearly, I would suspect they knew before July 25th when everyone else found out in an article. Yes. Mm-hmm. No. No. Well, that's what I'm saying. The public has a right to know.
And you're not going to find out, because if they're exposed, they're gonna blow the whistle, and they're gonna tell you like, well, your own government was paying us to do this. They knew we were there. They knew we were there and how we were operating.
So, was this company sponsored by the Chinese government? Who are these people? What is their role in this lab? What was the role of the experimentation with COVID-19 with mice and genetically engineering them to carry the virus? Why is that going on? Why is it going on here? What's the purpose of that? The public has a right to know all of those questions. Now, this is not about Chinese people. This is about a lab where people are using COVID-19 and infectious agents on mice illegally, dumping it illegally, and apparently they happen to be Chinese nationals. We'll find out whether that's the case or not. But I know you want to inject race into it, but it has nothing to do with this. There is no excuse, as far as I'm concerned, for not notifying the public about what's taken place.
Is there a particular person at the county level you hold responsible?
I hold the Board of Supervisors responsible. I hold the Department of Public Health. It is the Department of Public Health. And Dr. Vora had no problem spending every week for the last 2 years during the pandemic spewing misinformation to the public, and yet he's incredibly silent now.
I would look into how much money he's gotten from Fauci, this Department of Health in Fresno.
So is the Department of Public Health, and so is the Board of Supervisors, but they were silent during COVID the whole time. Well, the city of Reedley is the one that discovered it, and frankly, I want to give kudos to the Reedley Code Enforcement for finding it, for acknowledging it, for seeing it, for investigating it, and frankly, for all the agencies that are now investigating. That's exactly what needs to happen. I do not know anything. Again, that's Reedley, and so I don't know.
Should be torn down. It should be torn down.
I don't know what they're going to do. Well, you have an illegal lab. You're genetically engineering COVID into mice.
That now the local government is cleaning up. How about who's paying for this? Who's paying to clear all this shit out and dispose of it safely?
For what reason, we don't know. You have a Department of Public Health that becomes aware of this very shortly. It's now been 5 months. The public is not informed of this except from a reporter who reported this in a local media outlet. That's unacceptable to me. It's unacceptable to the people who are calling me, and it should be unacceptable to our constituents, which it is, when you have public officials who are supposed to be representing their interests, and they're not talking about this very dangerous behavior that's going on. If we can't understand that this is dangerous after going through COVID and millions of people dying, I don't know what it's going to take for elected officials to get off their asses and represent the people. I'll leave that to the county. I think Dr. Vora should have lost his job long ago. I would have fired him long ago for all of the misinformation he was spewing to the people in Fresno County.
And they're gonna, when Newsom runs, they're gonna hang this over his head, boy.
Listen, my position of who I am and what I do as a representative for the...
So this scumbag media is like, you're just trying to make this because you're going to run for supervisor. Like, hey, bro, you got 1,000 mice with COVID that were just abandoned, refrigerators, blood samples, malaria, herpes, HIV. This is the new warfare.
The people is very clear, and my position and the way I conduct myself is very different than most politicians. I'm unafraid. I speak the truth. I don't back down from all of the attacks, and I'll be attacked here too, I'm sure. So they understand that, and that's a very different thing. Whether it happens in a hate campaign, we shall see. No. Well, I'm the only one today who's been speaking out.
Yeah, nobody's, because they wanted to go away. They knew about this lab.
As far as we know, since July 25th. Yes. I've taken the questions to the public just like I'm asking right now. These questions need to be answered by officials who were involved in this incident. I'm doing that right today. Oh, yes, sir.
I could barely hear that, but it sounded like a baby. There's something about the back. I don't know what that was.
Well, when you say they haven't been...
Where are you getting these concerns? Like, this is insane. Like, look what's been found. How do you even question that?
verified, the concern is a verified concern. Well, if you understand COVID and
is that the end? It's still running, but the video's not, I guess. Okay, so it appears that is the end right there. So, wow. Just wow. So, there we go. This is the new warfare, people. And I have no doubt the feds knew. The feds knew 100%, and this whole thing is a whitewash. I mean, this is terrifying. The real question is, how many more of these labs are there out there? I'm sure there's many. Can I prove that? No. But what do you think? This is the only place, the one place they're doing it in with one of these, with these PPP loans? It's the place that got caught? Spare me. So, thank you to Blue Columbine for the contribution and the topic. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with either the Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, and email links in the description box below. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. Also, be sure to subscribe to both my channels on Rumble. Follow me on Twitter and Telegram as well. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Societal Narcissism. Take care, everyone.